Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're really glad that you could join us for another week.
We sure are.
And today we're very lucky. We have a special guest with us, Lauren Z. Schneider. Lauren integrates systematic therapy, eco-psychology, dream work, and her pioneering method, Tarotpy. I know I said that wrong. Is an innovative approach to spiritual psychotherapy. Tarot. Okay, what is the word?
Tarotpy.
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 Thank
It's
you.
like tarot therapy.
Uses the rich symbolic imagery of tarot and other archetypal images to lay the unconscious on the table, accessing inner wisdom and higher consciousness for guidance and healing. She facilitates healing ancestral trauma through her work with dreams and therapy. In addition to private consultations, Lauren lectures worldwide and facilitates training, workshops, and ongoing dream and therapy groups for therapists and laypersons. So welcome. We're really, really excited to have you on here and to get into this and find out what this is and how it, can help us and those kind of things. So welcome to our podcast.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I'm delighted for you to invite me on.
So can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got here and kind of how you introduce this to everyone?
Absolutely. It was totally unexpected. I was 25 years old. I had walked away from a job in television. I thought I was going to have a career in television and film, but I didn't like the way people were treating each other. I was fascinated by psychotherapy. I'd ended an affair with the editor from the job. I found out that my rental home was going to be sold. So I had no job, no boyfriend, no home. I was at a complete loss. And I'm sure we've all been there. And I'm sure that this is a time where many people can feel like that, that our lives are in upheaval and paths that you thought you were on come to an end. But these are also really auspicious times, opportunities for us to maybe listen to an inner voice inside, or even to get signs from the universe that we may be invited to go a different direction, nudged in a different direction. And what happened to me is I was standing and staring out to space in a bookstore, and a man came up to me and started to talk to me as if we had a rendezvous and talked for about 10 minutes about this ancient Chinese perspective, which is that everything is connected and that, well, everything's connected. And he basically said, if you studied this, you would know how much change is in somebody's back pocket. And at the end of this 10-minute conversation, he handed me his cherished traveling companion, the Book of the I Ching, which is an ancient book of wisdom. And he said, you're supposed to walk with this. And 2 weeks later, a man at the Rose Cafe in Venice handed me the tarot and said, you're supposed to walk with these.
Wow.
And I had no idea about divination tools or why I was being handed them. And I asked the second man if he would just teach me how to use them. And he didn't talk to me about the meaning of symbolism or the tarot tradition. He just showed me to pull cards. And I would hear a deeper voice in me when I would look at the images. And he taught me how to throw coins to do the I Ching. And I just heard myself say, I need to sit on my butt and I will know what to do in 2 months. And at the end of that summer, I applied for a master's program and walked into a master's program in marriage and family therapy with the tarot in one pocket and the I Ching in the other. And again, I did not study this tradition. I just got very curious and I began to experiment. What happens if I apply family systems to playing with the cards, with the images? What happens if I apply hypnotherapy, which I was trained in, to using images? What happens if I apply dream work? And I began to have these experiences where, first of all, I kept my therapy, which is what I called it, my therapy sessions separate from my psychotherapy practice because I was afraid that my license would get burned at the stake, metaphorically speaking. And I just became some word of mouth. I would do therapy, but I would discover that in one session, I would get more information and there would be more significant insights and shifts than in months to sometimes years of psychotherapy. So even though I was getting rolled eyes from colleagues and thought it would be easier if I wasn't doing this weird thing, I couldn't stop because it was so inspiring. And it just got me to jump over my doubt and concerns, how my colleagues were reacting. And I integrated into a psychotherapy practice and have been doing it for 40 years.
That's
Wow.
wonderful. That's really
Beautiful.
wonderful. Do you find then that when you bring that into the therapy sessions, do you think it opens up people a little bit more to be talking about what is going on? Like, do you talk to them about the images they see in the tarot cards as well?
Absolutely. Well, image itself, which is the root of imagination, is our mother language. It's the language of the unconscious. So when we bring in images, all of a sudden there's a medium. It makes it a lot safer to talk to people because they don't have to directly confront their problems. They're just talking about what they notice in the images. I'm asking them about what they notice. If I see a detail, if a detail jumps out at me, I will ask them about it. So I don't approach the images with a fixed definition. I discovered that if I have people choose a deck, that they will have more emotional resonance with the image, and also that the synchronicities, these correlations between the image and the client's concerns, are really heightened. So I have now about 50 decks. I invite somebody to pick. Yeah,
That's
I have
fun.
a whole
Sounds like
room
fun.
with decks in the secretary and in the trunk. I invite people to pick a deck or several decks. I will ask somebody, I'll ask them what's bringing them in. Why are they seeking counseling? They'll talk about what's going on, usually. And then I will ask them to just take a deep breath and ask your unconscious how many cards you need to see. How are they laid out? What's the meaning of each placement? So essentially, people are laying their unconscious on the table and they're getting a very unique map that's authentic to them. It's their inner blueprint. And then we're looking at it together. And again, since I don't look at the images, since I'm using so many decks, you don't have to know what the symbols mean. You
Mhm.
just allow the images to start to speak to you. You allow the details to catch your attention. And then I will ask about it. You know, I can show you an image and
Yeah,
show you
absolutely,
examples.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, we would love that because I know for us too, I think that is the way, like you get the messages, but I'm a very visual person. So when I see the cards, often things jump out from the cards, and I too have many, many decks.
He does.
It
I think
gets to
it's
be
an
a bit of an
obsession
addiction.
perhaps, but you know
Yes.
what? Could be worse, worse obsessions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a
Possibly.
valuable obsession. It really is a healing tool. So
Yes.
here's an example of one of my very early cases. Oh, hang on. I need to set it up. Let me get the PowerPoint up.
I think it's great too how you were saying just while you're doing that is like where you're when people are drawing these and putting them out there and putting, places to where these cards are and what they're feeling with them. I think that's really good too because they're digging deep in their soul without really even knowing that they're doing it.
Exactly. They're getting past, they're bypassing any defenses.
Yeah.
They're getting away from the rational mind because, when somebody comes in for therapy, they've usually been thinking about this problem forever and banging their head against the wall. And this gets them to unfocus from the problem and to drop into imagination
Mhm.
and to activate the unconscious because using images stimulates the unconscious and imagination, and all of a sudden you'll start finding solutions that you couldn't have thought of with the rational mind.
Yeah.
But also the way that the insights pop up with exactly what's going on for somebody. So here was an early case. This is where I was getting people coming to me word of mouth. And this woman came in, she was in her 60s. She was clearly anxious about her sons, but she was just hiding it behind a guarded smile and wasn't talking about what was going on with her. So I asked her to pick a deck, and she picked this card for the problem. And I'm going to show you, can you see that? The card on the left comes from the Karma Tarot deck. That's the deck she picked, and that's the card she randomly picked for the problem. I'm part scientist, so I'm showing the Rider-Waite deck on the right because we're most familiar with the Rider-Waite deck. If anybody's ever done a tarot reading, that's what most tarot readers use.
Okay.
And it's most typical of all decks. These are where the archetypal symbols are pretty typical. So usually for people that aren't seeing this podcast but hearing it, we're looking at an image where there's like a lobster crawling up from the waters, crawling down a path between a wolf and a dog, and then between two towers or two castles or two structures of some sort, and then a big moon overhead. So this might be an image that describes dreams, right? We bring something up from the unconscious, we bring it up between our domesticated instincts and our wild instincts, and we bring it into civilization with the two houses or two towers. But the card she picked from the Karma Tarot deck, what jumped out at me were there were, instead of houses or structures, there were wine bottles. I've never seen that before. So when that detail grabbed my attention, I simply asked a question, and I asked her if there was a drinking problem in the family. Well, both sons were alcoholic and the husband had died of alcoholism.
Oh, dear.
So in one session, we got into the problem that she was trying to avoid.
Wow.
That's an example.
Amazing.
And, you know, if you want, I can show you another case where the image just offered the solution for her because
Yes,
images are
absolutely.
themselves very healing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's very interesting.
You want me to show you?
Oh, yes, please. Sorry.
Yes, please.
All right. Hang on. Let me just
Yes,
set it
I
up.
think it's very interesting because yeah, it's interesting what grabs your attention first in that picture, right?
Well, I can also show you how insanely accurate the synchronicity is. Hang on. Let me just get out of that for a sec. It takes a moment to set up.
Yes,
Oh,
no.
it's okay. We have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, I was running dream groups for training therapists. And if somebody didn't have a dream, I would invite them to do therapy because therapy is like a dream with your eyes open. So one of these women, I'll call her Lucy, didn't have a dream. And so I asked her, how many cards do you need to look at? She said 7. How are they laid out? In the shape of a body. Could you name each placement? I'm focusing now on the one she called her heart center. So this is the card that came up for her heart center. And it's the King of Swords on the left. This comes from a German deck called the New Age deck. Again, I'm showing the King of Swords from the Rider-Waite deck, so my control deck. And if you're looking at the King of Swords in most decks, he's going to be dressed in Renaissance garb and holding a sword. Tarot probably comes from the time of the Renaissance, so that's the way most kings look. And if we're looking at an older gentleman, the group began to guess, well, it might be a boss or a father. And Lucy said, well, my father is my role model and very close to my heart. So we were looking at her father in the place of her heart. But if you look at the card she picked from the New Age Tarot, you're seeing that this is like a very hip dude from the 21st century. He's got earphones on. He's holding a missile. It says nuclear and atom on the pedestal that he's standing on. And Lucy said, in fact, my father is a scientist, nuclear scientist who works with the atom.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow, that's how accurate the synchronicities are. So now we're really talking about her dad.
yeah,
And why did her dad come up?
yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
That
I
is
like,
that is
I like
really
it.
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I like
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. And so she began to have dreams then about her dad. She realized that having her dad as a role model, she learned to lead with her intellect.
Hmm.
But as a training therapist, she needed to trust her emotional intelligence. And so she began to have dreams with her dad moving next door and understood that she was balancing her relationship between her heart and her head.
Wow.
It's neat.
Cool.
That is neat.
That is really something. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mind-blowing.
I think that's so true is like in and it's funny because I think we all pick things, and I love that you let them pick their own deck of cards and then their own cards and then their own placement of the cards, because I think you're drawing so much into your unconsciousness then when you're doing that. And I know even when we do our podcast and we're doing our monthly readings and we pick the decks of cards, and then we're like, we pick two decks each, pick four cards, so two each, and they all go together. And I
Every
mean,
time.
of course,
Yeah,
because that's what our mission is to tell you what's going to happen for the month. So that unconsciously, when we're picking those cards, we know these are all going to go together, and they
And
always.
yeah, they do.
that's absolutely right. We're really accessing the deep wisdom of the unconscious. And then
Yeah.
when you notice these synchronicities, it opens us up to a connection with something much larger than us. And so we begin to maybe understand that the universe is also participating with us in our growth and our evolution.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's something that your clients could take home with them, because if they got their own deck that they were drawn to in the store, I mean, they don't have to have lots, just even one deck. When they were feeling those emotions coming up or something that they weren't understanding in between times of talking to you, they could pull a card and take a look at it and start to decipher that themselves.
True.
Exactly. They learn to have their own tool that they can use for their own guidance at home. And also, when they have these really powerful cards come up that inspire them, that give them hope, that make them see possibilities that they couldn't see before, they'll put it on their phone. They'll look at it all the time. And so they'll keep coming back to that sense of inspiration and hope and guidance. And the
Yep.
images will stay with them. The woman, Lucy, uh, I called her 20 some years later to ask if I could use this case for teaching. And
Beautiful.
she said, are you talking about when my father came up? Neither of us would ever forget them.
That's
These were
true.
such
Absolutely.
powerful moments.
I think too, what you're doing is showing people how to trust their intuition, you know,
So,
because we doubt that so much, and it takes a long time to really trust it. So what you're doing is getting them to trust in themselves, because that's all of our intuition, right? So they're really touching in with their heart with what you're doing, like a lot, and their third eye, right? So that's beautiful.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And every time you have this powerful connection, resonance between the image and yourself, you are strengthening your intuition. You're beginning to
Yeah.
trust your own inner vision.
Yes.
So, absolutely. I think that synchronicity has a very powerful healing
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Yes.
impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you say with the dreams, because I've never really thought about that aspect of it. And so I dream journal, but occasionally you dream journal and it's like jibber jabbish. So like you're like, I have no idea what any of that means on that paper, but that's what I dreamt. So I think that would be very interesting to pull in a card that, you know, had to do with that. Like, what is the meaning behind this dream that I have that I don't understand, and to see what comes out. So thank you. I'm gonna try that out.
Yeah, just,
Yeah,
and
I just did a training on working with dreams and therapy, and I had to do a disclaimer because dreams themselves, there's so many images there. Why would you want more images? And there's a part of me that wonders, is this going to work? But it does. It just brings a focus and a clarity very often to the dream.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
I
does.
can see how it would do that. So I'll be interesting to give that a shot myself, because like I say, like sometimes I dream and I remember, you know, 2 words out of the dream, that's it. And sometimes I could dream journal 2 pages in a journal, right? So it just depends on, I don't know, maybe something I've seen, what I'm feeling, what's inside of me rattling around in there that needs to come out. I don't know.
I'd love to hear how it works for you. And also, that's such a good idea when you say, you know, you might just remember a word from the dream or hardly get anything. And then if you pull in an image, you're bringing the atmosphere of the dream back.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
and
can
I do
help to
try to
recall
do that
dreams.
at night because I've just studied a little bit and listened to people talk about that. And so they're always talking about these hook words or different things to hook into your dreams to remember them. So I'll often do that if I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or something and you wake up from a dream. It's like, okay, what did I remember of the dream? Remember that part, remember that part, remember that part. And then almost always when I go back to sleep and wake up in the morning, I can still remember that first dream that I had just because I've given that
Couple
what
minutes.
I
Oh,
need
that's
to
great.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I love the, you know, adding those in together just to get some answers, because yeah, there's always that question. Why did I dream that? That's so weird. Why'd that person pop up in my dream after, you know, forever
Right.
years?
Yeah,
So you
after
can
we're
get further
gone.
guidance on the dream. The other thing I love about working with these images is that, let's say that we have a nightmare, you know, like we have a nightmare because we keep getting stuck at the same place. Well, there's a technique that we can use in dream work, which is through active imagination. We can dream the dream forward. We can make a different choice. We can say, I'm going to go to that place where I got stuck and further it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
dream the dream on. Well, with Tarotpy, it's the same thing. You can lay out cards and say, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in this place that it's describing. That's where I feel stuck right now. But what would happen if I pulled another card to say, what would this look like if I evolve? What would this
Okay.
look like, you know, if I move out of this stuck place? And now you have an image to inspire you and to move you forward. We all know that visualization helps people to
Mm-hmm.
practice life.
That's
And
true.
right, it helps with healing. So now you can use the images to pull your life forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would help when people are stuck and just, you know, I don't know where to go. Like, I don't know what avenue to go down, just to have that image. And especially if you're going right, like you said, with your instincts and, you know, how many cards do I need? Because I don't think we often ask ourselves those things when we're looking for the answers, right? Where that really gives you that little path to go down, which I love. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, because I developed it as a psychotherapist, I knew that I needed to use this to really ask for counsel from the deep psyche, from the unconscious, and to be mindful. I had to be very mindful that I was not doing predictions, you know,
Mhm.
um, because I was using it within the framework of a psychotherapist. So,
Right.
yeah, it's very powerful when you ask, how many cards do I need to see? And how are they laid out? And what's the meaning? And all of a sudden, you really have a roadmap.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. You know, and
Yes.
people need direction. They do. you know, one way or another, they need direction in order to figure things out. So, yeah, I
So
like
is
it.
that something then you could bring into like, if you were working with couples, like could couples pick some different cards to sort of get that conversation started between them? Or if you're dealing with younger children that maybe can't necessarily vocalize what their real problem is? I don't have, that's not the right word that I want, but you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you know, kids, or especially, let's say, teenagers, are really reticent to talk about what's going on with them. And somebody I know who uses therapy in an inpatient teenage program, um, she gets the whole family talking, because the teenagers start to look at these images and they'll get excited and they'll start talking about the details that they see. And the minute they're talking about the details, they're sharing about how they relate to it and what it brings up for
Wow.
them emotionally. So it's wonderful for children and teens and great for couples. And, you know, again, what you'll get is, I've had men come in who will say, you know, I'm not very self-reflective. I'm a corporate guy, I'm an organizational guy. I don't know if I could do this. And he lays out some images, and all of a sudden is deeply reflective and
Mhm.
sharing at a much deeper level. And that will help the couple to bring out a deeper perspective of what's going on between them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that
Very
because I
true.
think a lot of times you just need that initial thing to start the conversation, right? So when you're doing something like this, that is your initial thing that puts those defenses down.
And then, of course, there's this really weird synchronicity, like working with a family where everybody picks an image, and the relationship between the father and the daughter is shown in the image. You know, that he's a bit of a dictator, you know, because a dictator image comes up, and now we can see what some of the dynamics are in the family, and it's just uncanny how that happens.
Yeah, that really is. You looked like you were going to say something.
You mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I was. I like it because it's the script. And like you already said, people like to see things because they like it to be the script in front of them. You know, what a good idea at a family thing. It could be really interesting. We should try it, Kimmy, at one of our family things to see where it goes. I mean, why not? Because it's going to bring out some other things that maybe are being hidden and people don't speak of. So yeah, that's a really good thing, because I think anything that brings out what you need to talk about is a good thing. You know, it's always good to be talking about what it is that's underlying problems or anything like that.
I'm sure you're always doing this with your friends and community, but I'm just thinking about what a great icebreaker this is when you get together with a group of people
Yeah.
and you have each person pick a card and then introduce themselves through the card, you know, through the image. And it just opens up so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Do
a really
you
neat idea.
do you use the cards with your kids? I'm just curious.
Well, when my boys were young, mom actually bought them both a deck because they liked being around us when because we did them a lot, so they'd be around. And now we're raising my granddaughter, so I do her cards, but when I do cards with her, or if mom is over and we're both doing cards with her, we always ask her, "What do you see?"
Yes.
And then she goes forward to tell us what she sees, because I feel like as much as it's nice to have somebody else tell you, it's really good to have that introspection of what you're pulling out of this as well.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
We do what we call stocking, Kim and I. So what I see, then she either enlightens it even more so, or adds in her definition of how she feels or what she thinks the cards are about. So then the child that's sitting with us gets two parts of what they might, two different things that they can think about. Or maybe they'll just be together, sort of thing. but it still works real nice because it makes them think. And it's always important to make a child or anybody think beyond being stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. And to share at a deeper level what they're feeling. And
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I feel like it would be really good for, because I've been thinking a couple of kids in my mind, and it's just like they can't get the words out, like they're angry and they're frustrated, and they just can't convey that thing. So it just makes me question, if the parents were to do this with them, maybe that would be a step of, it's something different. It's not just going to the counselor, because when they're they don't really, necessarily want to do that. They feel that's very putting them in the box. So this is
Exactly.
an outside way of doing it that's a little, I feel, a little more gentler, a little more fun, a little more flowing with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's playful. I mean, that's another thing, is it's creative, it's stimulating, it's playful. And when people come in, kids don't want to talk about problems. They want to be able to talk about what they're feeling, but they also want it to be, fantasy is very real for them. So these
Mhm.
images can be very real. And again, as a therapist, when people come in and they're stuck in a problem, they're in a great deal of pain. And to bring in something that's creative, that invites flow and even playfulness, it just changes the whole tone
It
of
does.
therapy.
The chemistry of the whole meeting together, being together. Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah,
energies, you could watch the energies move even in a situation like that, because you know how you being empaths and stuff like that, you catch the feelings, but that there you're really playing with them more openly,
yeah.
and people can sort of fix that and get that.
And I'm in awe because, I have a methodology that I trust, but I don't know what's going to happen. Right. And I've ended up working with a number of people in the last few years that are dealing with loss of a significant other, dealing with loss and death. And again, I don't know. I don't have an opinion about what's on the other side necessarily, but the cards bring in a spiritual perspective that is so helpful to sustain people in the midst of grief, or loss. And um, I've had people come in to a session saying, I was going to cancel because, I'm just feeling so overwhelmed and so awful. And by the end of the session, they're just inspired and feel grounded and, feel connected. Maybe if the person's on
Beautiful.
the other side, they feel connected with them. Again, it's just extraordinary. And so I'm learning as I do this with people.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's good too. That's good too, to keep us stimulated as we're moving along with this, because stimulation makes us better too, as what we're doing, right? Always. So cool.
Yeah, I think it really is. And I think too, I mean, there definitely is a place for counseling and psychotherapy and all of those things. So I don't want to not say that there isn't a path for that. And we were talking a little bit about this before we even got on air, but just, when that's what you're doing and that's your sole focus, we were talking about the burnout that you can get from that. And so do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, because I think we're at a time, that's what we were talking about earlier. We're at a time where anxiety and depression is really increased.
Has
People are facing a lot of challenges. We're facing some existential crises and social and political upheaval, and people are overwhelmed. Well, this is overwhelming therapists as well. It's overwhelming the mental health care practitioners. And I experienced this myself. I was completely burnt out doing my traditional psychotherapy practice, and I left it in 2017 because I couldn't do it anymore. I was so burned out. But when I do therapy or dream work, I don't have to figure out what's going on with the person. I don't have to carry this burden of overwhelming responsibility to save them or fix them. I trust that the wisdom of their unconscious is going to get revealed either through the dreams or through the therapy session. And I trust the images, again, of the dreams or the therapy to guide the session. So I don't even have to structure the session. I just get to facilitate, and reflection is easy for me. So I'm back to doing my practice in a way that I have so much more joy and, again, inspiration. And it inspires me, it inspires the client. And I've left traditional psychotherapy. I have great respect for psychotherapy of all different kinds. This is not to in any way minimize the necessity of psychotherapy or the different modalities that are available. But this is my modality. And I have found that, again, it keeps me in a state of creativity and inspiration. It helps bring a higher consciousness into the session so that we are guided. I'm guided in the session. The client feels that kind of guidance. And given the collective state we're in, I believe that there's a reason that young people, especially, are wanting their therapists to incorporate divination tools, where young people are drawn toward divination tools. There's a reason that this is having a renaissance in and out of therapy. It's
Absolutely.
huge.
I think it's really great. And I know, like, with my counselor, she's so good because she does a lot of, guided imagery and things like that. But she also brings in some of the EFT, and she brings in some of these other things that I really appreciate, because when you're getting something off your chest, sometimes you're not even sure, you're lost yourself in your own mind of where you're going. And so it just feels like with these different modalities, and I think something like this would be so helpful because it opens you up so much more.
Right.
Not
And
just sitting
it
across from
makes
someone like this, and then, where do you start that conversation sometimes?
exactly, exactly. And it doesn't mean that it will solve everything, or that I've gone back to some somatic therapy because trauma lives in the body.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different therapies that we need at different times. But in terms of really getting to the heart of the issue and even having a profound shift, because now the unconscious and the imagination is stimulated, this works wonders, and it's short term. I mean, I do ongoing groups. So again, I believe, and I was just talking to my son about this afternoon, about the value of therapy. And, and I believe that for me, being in touch with the inner self is a lifelong journey. I'm always going to be doing this. I think that groups doing tarot dream work is wonderful because I just think life is a lot richer, and you are finding your own unique path when you're being guided from your own unconscious. So I think it's a lifelong practice, and I do my tools almost every day. But as a therapy, it can really accelerate the work and be very short term, so that people can just drop in for a very specific issue and they get the clarity they need, and they're off and running.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you can take it into your own life and do it with yourself, right? Or create your own group of a safe, a safe group, right? People that you trust, and because you don't want to just go get vulnerable with anybody. So, I think you need that safe group. But I agree with the groups is so good because I think you have the collective there, and then people bounce those ideas, and you can pick what sticks, and sometimes you learn these new things, which I think is good, because I agree, and I think Mom would agree with us both, is that yes, the healing is definitely a journey. You're always looking. You're always trying to make yourself better, be more authentic, find your true meaning and passions. And I
That's
think
right.
it's great you can live a life of joy doing this.
I
Yeah,
agree.
and as you were describing, when you're working in a group, you learn from each other. You, you know, there's a theme that runs through the group when you do dreams or therapy. The other thing is that we really need community. And I think we need community that's truly intimate and, soulful. And this is a way to help people have community.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, I'm so grateful to be able to facilitate a dream group or a therapy group with people that are fairly isolated, and they will develop deep friendships out of these groups.
Nice. That's nice too. You know, everybody needs somebody, right? Or something along the way. So, I always say that, people come into our lives because we need something or we give them something, but they also leave our lives to let the new ones come in to learn the new things that we need to go ahead and do now, right? Because we change as well, all
Exactly.
our whole lives. Yeah.
And think about what happened to all of us with COVID. The world shut down. We all became isolated in our homes. Thank goodness for Zoom. Um,
Yeah.
That's true.
I learned how to run these groups on Zoom so that people can connect with each other.
Nice.
Which is amazing. So do you offer those off of your website and stuff then, these groups that people can
I
do? Or
do. I do. I have 3 different groups going, and one's a private, so people formed a group and asked for me to do it just with them and not open it up to more. People can do that if they have a group that they want to be with.
Mhm.
I have a layperson's group that shares, we all meet once a month, all the groups would meet once a month. And then I have a therapy practitioners group. And I do trainings with therapy for lay people and professionals. And in fact, I got certified by my licensing board, basically, to give continuing education credits to therapists to teach therapy. So I am
Wow.
just so stoked
oh, that's so
that
exciting.
there
Congratulations. That's amazing.
it took a lot of work.
That's a lot
Uh,
of work, but you know what? You're
but
working.
I open these groups to lay people and therapists because
Right.
there are people that are gifted healers who are not licensed, and also we can all use these tools, and I feel like it's very democratic. I don't
And
distinguish because somebody is licensed.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So this hour has like rushed right by.
has it ever?
So if you had a final thought to leave with our followers, what would be your final thought?
I would encourage people to perhaps go out and get a deck, go look for decks that attract them, where the images inspire and attract them. I recommend that you get a deck that has images for every card, because there were tarot decks that just had symbols. But now
Right.
there's many decks, oracle decks, dream decks. You can pick any deck as long as it has imagery that's evocative for every card. And then
Nice.
just pick a card a day and ask, what message do you have for me today? How would you, this character, look at my problem or my life at the moment? How would you describe it? What strengths do you come with that I might be able to use? How would you companion me through the day? And you can
Beautiful.
just begin to do that, as you were saying, Barb, to really strengthen your intuition and have a tool that you can use for your own guidance.
Nice.
You can get
Beautiful.
together with friends. I finally published a book. This is took 20 years. It's 40 years of my work, but I published in 2021, and it's called Tarotpy. It's all in the cards, and you can use the book as a guidebook because it teaches you the tool, and get a group of friends together and use it the way that people would use the artist's way.
Beautiful. That's
Very
very
nice.
good.
And you
Very
can
nice.
get that like on Amazon or in your local bookstores and
Well, local bookstores in Santa Barbara, you can get it on Amazon. Yeah.
yeah. Perfect. Well, I'll make sure I put that in the show notes, and so you can tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so I have my website at dreamsandtherapy.com. My Instagram is Tarotpy. It's all in the cards. That's one big long word. I can't tell you what my LinkedIn is off the bat. I think I put it in there for you.
Yes.
But they can always find me through my website. And my email is laurenz@dreamsandtherapy.com. And I'm always available for a call or an email, and happy to answer questions, happy to give people suggestions,
Beautiful.
happy to give people a list of possible decks because
Great.
my groups have really generated a lot of great decks. So I have
Yes.
lots of recommendations.
Wonderful. Well, it's one of your favorite decks. If you were
Well,
to
my go-to deck
one.
for many, many years was the Voyager deck. But
Oh,
as you were
wow.
saying again, Barb, you know how you change friends? I find I also changed decks over the years.
Mhm.
So then I got into the Osho deck, then the Druidcraft deck, and now it's called the Enchanted Map Oracle cards is one
Love
of my
those
favorite.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. We've used those ones too.
Yeah.
What's your favorite decks, just out of curiosity?
Oh, I do most of my readings and stuff it's called a red deck. And it's basically like it's like playing cards. And even though I use all the other ones too, but it's just been sort of the one that keeps coming back to me, and I use them a lot. So but Kitty has given me some other ones to use here recently too. So I've been just catching up a bit on that too.
I would love to experience that with you.
Okay,
I
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I love the Enchanted Map also. I'm a big fan of Sandra and Taylor's cards. Hers are really they're just really beautiful cards, and there's a lot in the cards. And then the other ones that I bought that I really am kind of really liking at the moment is The Law of Positivism by Shireen Oberg. And I love those cards. Again, there's a lot of imagery in them, and I'm very much attracted to cards that have really cool imagery that you can keep getting deeper and deeper every time you look at the card. So yeah,
Yeah.
there you go,
Just-
followers. Now you got a whole bunch of decks you can choose
You
from.
do. And I'm going to look for one for the Egyptian ones. I've just recently found out that um, I have an Egyptian background that I need to follow up on and catch up on. It just keeps coming back to me and coming back to me. So I'm going to find a deck of cards that's got that in it. I think I really need that in my hands to, take me where I need to be going from here. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you're making me think about how the Tarotpy, the images, can get you in touch with your ancestry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
You
really,
know,
yeah, because it just keeps coming up. Seems like every time I turn around, somebody goes, Egyptian this, Egyptian that, and I think, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
follow
that's a
that one up.
great message to everybody too, is to go with your heart and go with what's calling you and look at that. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure. I've learned so much. It's given me a
Me
whole
too.
bunch of ideas for my daily practice. So thank you very much. And we hope you'll
thank
come
you.
back another time and share space with us again.
Yeah,
I would
you
love
bet
that.
you. I hope so too. Very nice to meet you too. You're just a pleasure. Very much a pleasure to
Oh,
talk to you.
the same. Just lovely to talk with both of you. Maybe dreams next time. It's just wonderful to meet you both.
Sounds perfect. So everybody else, join us next time.
You should.